This is good old boy Mike from Sips, Suds, and Smokes podcast, and you're listening to Pop Goes Your World.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 300, A Look Back. I'm Chris McBrien along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. This week, we've hit a milestone. It's our 300th episode. So Derek and I decided it might be nice to take a look back over the past 300 episodes, maybe talk a little bit about our journey so far here. But I did want to mention that I reached out to Yancey, but his agent told me he's unavailable. Apparently, he's shooting a major Hollywood picture in southern Florida. So he's busy. He can't join us.
I was going to say, we don't pay him enough to make a guest appearance. Yeah,
don't blame him. So, Derek, before we get to things, I think we should start the show the way that we've started for the past 9 seasons. What is new in the world of pop culture for you, my friend?
All right. Hey, Chris. A few things, not a very long list this week, so I'll try and get through them quickly. Sure. First of all, we went to the theater and saw Beetlejuice. I'm sure you are aware they made a sequel. I am aware of it. I have not been out to see it yet. And it was funny because you made me watch the original movie here on the podcast, and I had never seen it, even though I'm a Gen X guy. It was one of the movies that just kind of escaped me, and I just never got around to watching it. Never really appealed to me, I guess. And so we watched it. But so what's the sequel like? Well, I really liked it. I went in with sort of middle of the road expectations because as we've talked about on many of our previous episodes, so many movies get unnecessary sequels or reboots or reimaginings, or they're like, hey, let's think like with the Indiana Jones franchise, they're like, well, we're going to try and hand it off to a younger person so we can keep making money off of this franchise. And I think with this particular movie, there was that same idea, like, hey, we can make it a next generation kind of film and take it from there. But what I really got the sense of when I watched this was that the major players, including Tim Burton, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, and Michael Keaton, they all seem to really respect the original material. And honestly, none of them need the money. So they're not just doing it to cash a paycheck. And I was reading through the trivia of the movie afterwards, and they were all saying for years, people were like, are you going to do a sequel? Are you going to do a sequel? And they all just kept saying, we're not going to just do it for the sake of doing it. We're going to wait until we've got something really good, or we're not going to do it. And I think that worked. I think that's what they got. I think I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to. I'm not saying it's a perfect movie, but I felt it was worth my money because I did see it in the theater, and I'm glad I saw it. And I will definitely watch it again when it comes through on one of the streamers. And if you're a big fan of this franchise, if you're a big fan of sort of Tim Burton's style, this is his classic thing. Danny Elfman does the score. Tim Burton's had a few misses over the last few years, but this is sort of his return to what he's good at kind of thing. So, I don't think there's going to be any real surprises in the way of style or storytelling, but the script was decent and it was original, and it came up with some interesting ideas on how to move this story in a different direction, but not in a way that really felt like it was too much of a left turn from the original material. So, no, I enjoyed it. So Michael Keaton was in it and Winona Ryder was in it from the original. But what about Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis? Are they in it? I'd rather not speak to some of that because I don't want to spoil things. But gotcha. Let me just say that the original source material is honored in very creative ways. I will say that the dad from the original movie, who was charged with some sex crimes or child porn and stuff, they wrote him out in a very creative and clever way that just felt really appropriate to have his character acknowledged, but not actually. I believe the actor is dead now anyway, but they needed to figure out a way to do that, and it was done in a very clever way. So it just felt appropriate. So I think they did a really good job. Okay. And then I think I mentioned on the last couple of shows, I'm trying to listen to more audiobooks because I have this Audible account. I have all these credits. I'm trying to, get through these books. And I've listened to a couple of duds over the last little while, but I actually listened to a really good one this week. It is a book it's part of a series called The Bob-iverse. And it's a science fiction series. This is the newest one. It's the 5th book in the series. The title is called Not Till We Are Lost. The author is Dennis E. Taylor. And the first
Dennis Taylor,
book,
you know what? You know who he is? He's from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He was Brad Hamilton's boss.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Dennis Taylor.
Probably not the same guy, but you never know. But anyway, this series, the first book was called We Are Legion, We Are Bob, and it's about a guy whose brain is uploaded into a computer, and then he's put into a spaceship and sent out into the galaxy, and then he ends up making copies of himself, and then hence the universe becomes the Bob-iverse. So that was just the colloquial name for the series. It's really good. It's really clever. It's very entertaining. And if you listen to it on Audible, the voice actor is one of my favorite voice performers, and I think his last name's Porter, if I remember correctly, and it's fantastic. The book was great. The performance is great. If you're even mildly interested in science fiction, I strongly recommend you check it out. Even just check out the first book, We Are Legion, We Are Bob by Dennis E. Taylor. And if you enjoy it, good news. There's 5 books in the series. And as far as I know, there's going to be a 6th book, although the 5th one literally just came out. So it'll be a while, but I can't imagine he's going to stop now. So
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How long does it take to listen to a book?
Well, that's an interesting question. So
is it like the same relative thing, like amount of time it takes to read a book?
Not for me, because I'm actually a very fast reader. But obviously you have to be able to comprehend the words as they're being spoken. You can adjust the speed though. And I think I mentioned this. I listened to an audiobook about a year ago, and it was written by a guy who's in his 80s, and it was all about sports gambling and his history and his life about sports gambling. And he reads it himself. And oh my God, he's your typical old man reading it super slow. I had to listen to it at like 1.4 times the speed just to like, get
just to bring it up to normal.
Yeah. Now I find with most books, I can do them at 1.1 speed and still feel comfortable. But any more than that, it starts to sound odd and sped up. But like, for example, this one I just listened to, I think the normal run time is about 12 hours. And with my 1.1 times, I think I got it in like 10 and a half. But I downloaded the book Shogun a couple of years ago because I knew they were going to be turning it into a TV series.
The original James Clavell?
James Clavell's Shogun. Wow. It's 48 hours.
Oh, that's a huge book.
Yeah.
It's like War and Peace or something like that.
I got something like 10 hours into the audiobook, and I had to just be like, okay, that's enough for now. And then I never got back to it. And then the show came out, and I'm like, well, I don't want to watch the show because I want to get through the book. And it's just like this never ending. And then it won all these awards at the Emmys this week, so I'm so torn. But anyway, We Are Legion, We Are Bob is the first book in the series. The new one, the book 5 just came out, was really good. And then I also want to give a shout out. I've been listening to some podcasts. I've been trying to clear up room on my phone. I've been listening to a bunch of the Cinema 9 podcasts. Our friend Michael Govier, one of the hosts over there.
Great job.
And they do a good show. If you're looking for a good podcast, like they do a lot of really bizarre movies. Like that's part of their shtick is they pull like a lot of stuff that people are like, is this movie any good? Does this movie still hold up? And I listened to an episode this week about Hot Tub Time Machine, which is one of my favorite guilty pleasure movies. And the podcast was fantastic. So if you're not listening to the Cinema 9 podcast, you should check them out. I mean, the Hot Tub Time Machine episode was a little older. I'm trying to get through the older episodes first, but they do good work over there. So I want to give them a shout out. Yeah, and then finally, I had a chance to watch not one, but 2 documentaries.
For 40 days and 40 nights, he watches documentaries. He likes to learn about the world. It's Derek's Documentaries. Derek's Documentaries.
It's 2 for 1 tonight.
It is.
Lay it on us.
So the first one I actually just watched this week. It just dropped on Disney Plus in the last couple of weeks. It's called Child Star. Now, you may remember about a year ago, there was one, I think it was called Hollywood Kids with a Z. And it was like Will Wheaton and sort of that crop of child actors who were talking about their experiences growing up in Hollywood and the troubles and tribulations they went through. So this one, similar idea. It's
and sorry, when you say that crop, like from the 80s kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the one that came out a year ago. So this new one that just came out, it's primarily about Demi Lovato, and she co-directs it as well. And do you know who Demi Lovato is?
Yeah, so surprisingly enough, I do. So she actually got started on Barney.
Yes.
And then went on to have a singing career, and then really got into like some substance abuse issues. And then she did some like reality show that was like talent contest or something like that.
Well, and she had a number of shows on the Disney Network and stuff. She's
like super famous. Like
she's very famous,
and
she's also famous because she grew up in the social media era where everybody knew all the things going on with her and her eating disorders and her mental health issues and her substance abuse and all that stuff. So anyway, for her, I think it was a little bit of therapeutic to do this. And she reached out to some of her peers and some of her friends who had similar issues, and they talk about the stress of being famous, but they also, a lot of them had issues where their parents, guardians, and agents stole all their money. So that was a big part of it. The documentary was okay, but for me, I didn't really have a personal connection to a lot of the people she interviewed, just because she's so much younger and the people that are in her peer group are so much younger. So I wasn't familiar really with a lot of their shows, their movies. Some of them are singers. I don't really know a lot of their music just because they're much younger. It's all newer stuff. Although they did go back and talk to Drew Barrymore and Kenan Thompson. And so those were sort of the representative of sort of the old school child actors who are now like grown up and adults and have come to terms with it. But she did interview a lot of younger performers. So again, it wasn't really my jam, but I can see how younger people, this would be a good avenue to learn about this stuff. And one of the women that my wife works with, she's, much younger than we are. And she said she just watched it and loved it. And again, but she said like she grew up watching all these shows, so it meant more to her. So anyway, Child Star, it's on Disney Plus. Again, I'd probably give it a C+, B- just because it's not really my jam. But if you have a personal connection to Demi Lovato or some of these other performers, you may enjoy it more than I did.
And it's universal themes. Like you're saying,
absolutely.
These child stars, their parents are taking all their money. That's been going on forever. Like, Gary Coleman, his parents stole all his money, after he did Different Strokes. So this sort of thing's been going on for a long time.
It has. And they talk about they talk a little bit about Shirley Temple, and I can't remember the kid's name that starred with Charlie Chaplin, and the two of them, and how they were sort of the first superstar child actors who totally just got abused. Not like physically abused, but they were overworked, they were underpaid, their parents and guardians stole all their money, and then like literally laws had to be put in place, largely because of these two very famous child actors who just people took total advantage of. So any case, and then the last documentary I saw, this one was actually, I really enjoyed it. This one speaks a little bit more to my time frame. It's called Disco, Soundtrack of a Revolution.
Oh.
It's 3 1-hour episodes. It was on PBS. I had recorded it a couple of months back, and I finally got time to watch it. It was absolutely amazing. Now, I don't really know a lot about the history of disco. Disco music, I could take it or leave it. I'm not one of these like hardcore guys like disco sucks, I'll never listen to disco. I didn't know a lot about how disco got started. I sort of only knew what I had heard growing up in the 80s, the backlash that had come at the end of disco. And so this documentary really goes right back to like the 50s, the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and sort of all the roots of all the culture and what led to disco. And I think like it wasn't until like the end of the first episode that they even started calling it disco. Like that's how far back they went. And again, having no idea what it was about, it was extremely educational. It basically boiled down to, you had people of color and minorities that were not allowed to go into the white areas of the urban centers to go to dance clubs and things like that. So they basically had to create their own safe spaces to do it. And you also had this underground gay community that was the same thing. They couldn't really be out and be themselves, but they were able to partner up with these other places. Like, so you basically had Blacks and Hispanics and a huge gay culture coming together and just having a good time, bringing all their music and their culture and their dance and their just their enjoyment of life and all the things that come with it. And it was fascinating to watch this thing. And let me tell you, the music's pretty damn good too. And so yeah, it's on PBS. It's been run a couple of times because I remember seeing it through the lineup and missing it the first time when I came back around to record it. So if you got PBS, keep your eye out for that one. It's called Disco, Soundtrack of a Revolution. It's 3 1-hour episodes. It was A++ amazing.
And like, I didn't hate disco. So that was kind of an interesting, because it's such a unique kind of style of music, because I don't think there's any other kind of music that is so tied to a certain time frame. You know, like country music's been around forever, jazz, heavy metal, whatever, but disco was like that certain time frame. You were mentioned there was roots back in the 40s, but we're talking late 70s. That was disco.
Well, that was when disco sort of became more mainstream. Like what the documentary really talks about, it's like the rise of DJ culture, the rise of what eventually became house music and hip hop. Like that all started, all of the roots were in the original disco.
Right.
And then when they started making money off of this stuff, that's when Whitey came in and said, like, let's whitewash this. Let's put it on mainstream records. Let's put it on mainstream radio. Let's make Saturday Night Fever and, you know, put a white guy in the movie lead and make it a big cultural phenomenon. And that's when all of the origins of what made it special were starting to just be diluted. And all the people that were part of the original thing at that point were like, okay, we got to move on to something else. And then so when it got to that point of everyone's like, you know, oh, disco sucks and we hate disco. It's like, well, what you really hate is what disco became. I think if you understood where it started, I think a lot of people would have enjoyed it a lot more. So, but they did talk about that whole thing about like how heavy metal versus disco, that was a big part of the last episode. No, it was really, really good. If you're into music and music history, this was a fascinating documentary. I learned so much.
And I remember when we had Greg Martin on the show, because he loves heavy metal. And I was asking him about disco. I'm like, you must hate disco. He's like, no, actually, I don't. And I was like, I was surprised. So, you know, that was interesting. Okay, so I got something I want to mention to you, Derek. It's my birthday this weekend. And
are you
stop. Don't play that.
Chris, are you turning 100?
Yeah, exactly. I hope I don't die before the end of this show. I'm so old. I went out for lunch today with my son, picked him up at school. I said, let's go for lunch today. Let's took him out for lunch. We get to the restaurant. We're sitting there. We went to Denny's. So I thought, we'll go to Denny's. He might like that, right? We go to Denny's. I'm sitting there, and he's like, Dad, you got to turn to the last page of the menu. I turn to the last page. It says 55 plus. I'm like, you're just a jerk. Oh, man.
Yeah, but you probably got a discount on your lunch. I
took the 10%. That's for sure. On my Denver omelet. It was all good. So anyway, I'm not mentioning that it's my birthday for attention. Okay, but the reason I bring it up is my wife came to me and she said, okay, what do you want for your birthday? Any guesses as to what my answer might have been, Derek?
Neck full of gold.
You know how much I love the neck full of gold. I also want to go.
Although I think you got that for Christmas last year.
I did. I got the neck full of gold, and I sang about the neck full of gold in one of our songs. But I want to go to the Hamilton Comic Con this weekend. So this is Hamilton, Ontario, because, you know, I'm Canadian. And there's some pretty good celebrity guests there. So, but mainly the ones I want to see are Lewis, Ogre, and Booger from Revenge of the Nerds. They're all going to be making an appearance there. It'll be great. So yes, Robert Carradine, Donald Gibbs, Curtis Armstrong. Oh my God, I can't wait. So I want to go to their Q&A. And Amanda Bierce is going to be there. You know, most people know her from Married with Children.
Marcy Darcy from Next Door.
Well, to me, she'll always be Amy from the original Fright Night.
Nice.
Jane Eastwood is going to be there. Super underrated Canadian actress. I always liked her. She was in the original stage cast of Second City in Toronto. There's going to be some wrestlers there as well. I don't really care for that too much. And of course, Derek, I'll be in pursuit of completing my collection of the Empire Strikes Back cards. I'm down to 4 cards that I need. So, and I'll be on the lookout for some of your Batman comics as well.
There we go.
Yeah. It's going to be a busy weekend,
man. I'll send you a list.
Yeah. I'll report back next week on how things went with Revenge of the Nerds. But anyway, I also have this.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
We're on our 300th episode. But the thing is, Derek, I wasn't always a podcaster. So I used to be a musician back in the day. I don't know if you know that. So here's my joke. Derek, did you know that I was once in a band called The Hinges?
The Hinges?
Yeah.
No.
We opened for the Doors.
Oh my God.
Water.
Fall Guy.
No spoilers, man. No spoilers.
No spoilers. I won't spoil it. I'd rather watch Heather Thomas on the TV show.
P. Diddy, and then he became Diddy, and now he's just like rapey.
You're gonna get bleeped anyway.
don't hate disco, but man, I hate Xanadu.
Or not to be confused with crisscross.
Swing low, sweet chariot.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not buying the Chris McBrien soundtrack.
Okay, so it's our
Chris. Did you have that drop specifically lined up? Because that was the one where Greg said he doesn't hate disco.
I know. Just go. It was just a happy accident.
Wow, just a coincidence.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. So a little bit of history about the podcast I'd like to go into, being for it's our 300th episode. So I want to go back all the way in time to January of 2012. So I started a podcast called Dear Mr. Fantasy. It's a fantasy baseball podcast. At the time, this was like the early days of podcasting. There was like me, CBS, and ESPN doing fantasy baseball podcasts. And it was just me, too, doing the show, by myself. And guess what? It sucked. So I realized I needed a co-host and I needed someone to banter with. So it was in me and my co-host, Mike Hilbig. I nicknamed him the Fantasy Doctor for no real reason other than I thought it sounded kind of cool. So, but what made us a little bit different, besides the fact that we weren't like a major corporation, doing a podcast, we used to rag on each other and like swear. And we'd basically just be like two friends talking about sports. And this show started to gain a following. And next thing you knew, like all these people from the fantasy baseball industry came on the show. Like we were nominated for 2 podcast awards. The first time we were up against ESPN, I got to go to Las Vegas to the awards, and I got to meet my hero, Matthew Berry. And we even had...
Wait, did you win?
And we did not. No, Matthew Berry won. And
ESPN
they should.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, ESPN is a little bit bigger than us, believe me or not.
Yeah.
We even had ex-Major League Baseball catcher Greg Zahn come on the show. It was a real ride, and then Yancey Eaton joined the podcast. And then as we got into like the 5th season of the show, like, I'll be honest with you, I just kind of lost my passion for it. But one thing that I didn't lose my passion for was pop culture. I've always been like a pop culture nerd. So Yancey and I went off and started Pop Goes Your World. And Derek, you joined us as a regular guest pretty much from the get-go. And then in season 3, Yancey stepped away. You took over as permanent co-host. And here we are now after all this in season 9, recording our 300th episode. It has been quite a ride.
As indeed.
Oh my God, it's been something else. And Derek, I just want to say how happy I am that you joined the podcast. Like I say, I've been podcasting for a long time, like almost 13 years. I will say you are the best co-host a guy could ask for.
Oh, thank you.
I love doing the show, and I look forward to it every week. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.
I certainly do. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
I cannot believe, I was saying to my wife before I came into the studio, I cannot believe how much content we've been able to create over the years. Like, it's amazing. If you think of it, this is basically 2 guys turning on microphones and creating something out of nothing. Like, it's just us talking about pop culture every week. We are lucky to do this. It's pretty cool. I think
if we can figure out a way to monetize this bad boy and actually get paid, that would be great.
Oh, I don't know about you.
For now, it's a passion project.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about you.
We love it.
I'm raking in the dough over here. So I think my favorite thing about doing this podcast, besides making lots of money, is just getting the chance to hang out with one of my best friends every week. We can talk about stuff I love, movies, TV shows, music. And for me, it's always about my love of Gen X pop culture, something I will never let go of, as you know.
No kidding.
and that's what I love about doing the show. That, and of course, becoming a millionaire from it, So I got that.
Wow. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I do have a question for you.
Sure, fire away.
That's what I've enjoyed about doing the podcast, but what have you enjoyed about doing the show since you've joined?
So, you know what? I actually was listening to some of the old episodes, and it occurred to me the things that I enjoyed the most about doing the show was when we did our 80s pop culture draft. Like that.
Oh, those were good. Yeah.
There was 10 episodes. We did them over 10 months. And I like that we didn't do them like 1980, 1981, 1982. Like we bounced back and forth, and because it really made us look at each individual year and talk about just what happened that year. Like, and because you're doing a draft, you're trying to pick the things that are the most popular, the movies that made the most money, the TV shows that garnered the most accolades, the songs that were the biggest hits. And so it really puts you in an exact moment in time. Like, we do a lot of 80s stuff here. It's clear to say that 80s gets more representation than any other decade on this podcast.
As it should.
But the fact that we came up with this little gimmick where we were able to isolate individual years and then just have a good time with that year and really just focus on what we thought were the best things, as well as then discuss like what were the statistical best things. And looking back, and I just recently listened to a couple of those draft episodes, like, you could tell that we were both just really having a lot of fun with those episodes. Like, I think usually you can really, it comes through in our passion and as we discuss whatever we're talking about. But clearly there are some episodes where one of us may be a little more passionate than the other, especially if it's maybe a movie review for a movie you don't like, or it's a topic you're maybe just, yeah, sure, we need a topic, let's do it. But those 80s ones, I think you could really tell we were both like so into it. And the fact that we're both fantasy sports guys, and we both like to gamble a little bit, like, it just had all of that extra icing on the cake. And because we had our listeners voting on it too, I know I discussed it, as we were doing the drafts, and I would reach out to people, go, well, you put your votes in. Yeah. Well, what'd you think? And how'd you do? And then I'd ask them, well, whose list did you vote for? And so it gave me an opportunity to reach out to some of my friends that I know listen to the podcast and engage them in a way that they hadn't been engaged before. So no, that to me was like one of the real highlights that we've done. I think we need to try and come up with something like that. I mean, we don't necessarily need to copy that formula, but I think maybe we need to put our heads together and try and find something like that where we can do like a little series within the series, because I really enjoyed that. And I got a lot of very positive feedback from the people that I spoke to about it.
I agree with you. And because it combined, like you said, two of my passions, which are fantasy sports and pop culture, all in one thing. And then I'm also very competitive. So then trying to get people to vote and stuff like that, that was good. I agree. Mm-hmm. So one thing, like, we really settled into a format around here. Obviously, one week I pick a movie to review, and then one week you pick a movie to review, and then one week we do a top 5 list, and then we, start all over again. So seeing how we've done literally dozens and dozens of movies, I got another question for you.
Sure.
What would you say has been the worst movie that we've ever reviewed? Now, I'm going to put a caveat on this. It has to be a movie that I suggested. Obviously, you're probably not going to suggest something that you think is terrible. So I can probably guess what you're going to say. I'm going to probably guess.
Yeah. I have 2 answers. I have an obvious answer and a less obvious. So you probably have the obvious one. Throw the obvious one at me.
I'm thinking it's either Ishtar or Meatballs.
It was.
I know you hated them both.
Episode 101 Ishtar was definitely one of the movies I enjoyed the least, but that's the easy answer.
Those are 2 of my all-time favorite movies too, by the way. I'm heartbroken that you hated them.
Well, I didn't say I hated Meatballs. I just didn't like it. I don't think it's a good movie. But
okay, so of all the movies that made you watch, what would you say is the worst? Maybe you have a few.
I got one here. So I looked back through the archives.
All right.
Episode 182, Johnny Dangerously.
What? You're crazy, man. This is a bargain trick question.
That movie was garbage. And the fact that I just saw Beetlejuice with Michael Keaton, I kind of feel bad having to sort of drag his name through the mud here, but that Johnny Dangerously was pretty bad.
You are so wrong.
There were a few on your list that I was like, but no, that one stood out. When I look back through the list, I was like, that's definitely the winner.
For Gen X people that love that movie, we're all yelling at you right now. People are yelling at their phones listening to this. That movie was great. I loved it. Okay, I got a few for you. So there's been some movies that you made me watch, obviously, that I absolutely hated. Most of them, actually. If you go back to listen, I'm always like that.
I was thinking that. I'm like, Chris's list is going to be a lot longer than my list.
No, but there's a few like standout bad movies that come to mind. Okay, so one thing I would say is I felt like you really struck out around the holidays. When you had me watch,
you really did not like my Christmas recommendations.
No, you made me watch. Like it was last year. We went on this run where we're like, what are some like holiday movies we should watch?
Yeah, we did 4 or 5 in a row.
And you had me watch Bad Santa and Love Actually. Those movies sucked. I also disliked Ready Player One. I remember I didn't like that one.
Yeah, I was surprised you disliked it as much as you did, given that you're an 80s pop culture guy. I think you'd enjoy the book a lot more.
Yeah, maybe. And then it's funny that you mentioned Cinema 9 at the top. Hot Tub Time Machine was another one I thought was just awful. It was one of these movies that like tried to go back and like capture that spirit of those 80s comedies and just flopped. Like it was awful. But I think if I had to narrow it down to one, probably the worst movie you ever had me sit through was Bad Santa. I would say that movie sucked.
I'll admit, Bad Santa did not live up to my memory either. I had remembered it a lot more fondly, and when I went back and rewatched it at Christmas, I wasn't enamored with it as much as I expected to be. I liked it, but I certainly didn't love it. And in retrospect, if I had seen it more recently, I probably wouldn't have had you watch it. But
yeah, so it's fun to rag on each other for bad movies. That's always a fun thing. But there's also been some really good movies along the way. So
there have indeed.
I would like to talk about movies that we enjoyed, but again, that the other person suggested. So I'll start us on this one.
I was going to say, why don't you start? I got a couple for you that I figure on your list. So I'm going to write it down and let's see here.
So I've got a few to mention here. These are movies that you suggested that I actually really, really liked.
Okay. I got two on my list here. So go ahead.
I thought Pleasantville was really, really good. And
that was the first one on my list.
You shocked me too with an old Gen X movie that I'd never seen, maybe surprisingly, and that was They Live with Roddy Piper.
Oh yeah.
I went into that thinking I would hate it. I'm like, I never watched this movie back in the 80s. I thought it looked stupid. I had nothing to do with it. I actually loved it, and I thought it was an amazing satire and social commentary. I thought it was great.
It aged very well.
I thought it was great. You had me watch There Will Be Blood. Might be the best American film I've seen in the last 25 years. That one stood out. But I think, if I really go back, I think the one that stands out to me the most, this is another old movie, but it was one that I'd never seen before doing the podcast. We were doing season 8, and we had, the running theme was movies celebrating major milestones. And you had us go back 50 years, all the way back to 1973. And we watched Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon.
Right, yeah.
That movie was amazing. It's this like B movie with like all this like dubbing and stuff in it, but it was so good. I couldn't believe I'd never seen it. Again, it just never really seemed like something that I would like or would appeal to me, but I absolutely loved that movie. So I think when I think of movies that you've had me watch here that I'd never seen before that I liked, Enter the Dragon always comes to mind. So that'd probably be my number one. So,
nice.
Yeah. So what about you? Any movies that I've nominated that you thought were actually good?
Yeah, well, a lot of them. Many of the ones you recommended I had either seen before but maybe hadn't seen in a long time. But I'm going to talk about 3 that I had never seen before. So the first one, and this could just be recency bias, is the one from last week, The Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks. It was great.
You did like that one. Yeah, that's
I really enjoyed it. And I've been telling people all week about it. And everyone's like, yeah, of course I've seen that movie. I'm like, well, why didn't you get me to watch it? Because it was great. Now, ask me this when we do our 400th episode. I don't know if that'll make the list again. Maybe it's just because it's still fresh in my mind. But that one makes the list.
But funny, so that's like some of mine, too, that were older ones. But for whatever reason, I just didn't watch them. Like,
oh, well, the rest of my picks get even older.
Oh.
So interesting. So I knew in my mind a movie that you had recommended that I was confident we had reviewed on this podcast. And I'm like, well, I only watched it because you made me watch it and I loved it. And when I went back through the archives, I couldn't find the episode. And I thought maybe the archives are missing some episodes. So I literally went back and counted from 1 to 300 to make sure that all the files were there and every one was there. And I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized we did an episode number 229 that was movies about movies. And your number one pick was the movie My Favorite Year.
Oh, yeah.
Which I had never seen. I'd never even heard of it. And I went and watched it based on your recommendation. And I loved it. So we didn't officially review it, but I would never have watched it if you had not had it on your list. And especially if you had not had it as your number one. But that alone gave me reason to look for it and to watch it. And it was fabulous.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because I've had some people watch that movie over the years, and for the most part, I've got a lot of negative feedback.
Well,
my wife was like, "Oh, this is dumb," and I've had other friends. I'm like, "You guys just don't get it. That movie is fantastic.
It is,
and it has one of the best lines ever in it. Peter O'Toole is this womanizer, and he walks into the women's washroom, and Selma Hayek is in there. And she says to him, hey, this is for women only. And he unzips his fly. And he goes, so is this, ma'am. But every once in a while, I have to run a little water through it. I don't know why that line always stood out to me. Peter O'Toole should have won the Oscar for that role. He was so good.
He was nominated. He was nominated. Yep. So anyway, the number one movie that we actually reviewed, we're going all the way back to our episode 95, and that was a movie I'd never seen but always wanted to, that you recommended I watch for this podcast, and it was Night of the Living Dead, the original.
Wow, I thought when we did that, you didn't like it that much.
No, I did. I liked it a lot.
That movie is
fantastic. Again, it's to your, like you were saying about the Enter the Dragon being like a B movie. Like here, this is this low budget B movie.
That's as low budget as you can get.
Yeah, but the fact that it's like, you know, it's it's not just a horror movie, a gross out movie. It's like it's a metaphor. It's making a statement. There's so much more going on. And as like for me, I love fantasy novels, and it's like fantasy novels are all about metaphor. You know, they're not really elves. The elves are stand-ins for some other aspect of our culture of someone who is a marginalized race. It's like, come on, they just dress it up in the book and making them elves or dwarves or orcs or whatever. I'm like, so this was the same idea with the whole idea of the zombies and all the rest of that. And obviously, zombies have become such a huge part of pop culture over the last 50 years. But like, this is it. This is the granddaddy of them all. This is the first one. Now, the zombie genre has morphed considerably since this, but every now and then you do still get a zombie movie where they sort of go back to the roots of this one. And, you know, it's not just a gross out movie. They're actually trying to say something. And, you know, hey, believe me, I've seen a lot of zombie stuff where it's just straight up, let's kill the zombies and make a horror movie. And those are fine in their own right. But that's not what Night of the Living Dead is. It's not what Night of the Living Dead was about.
Social commentary.
It's all about social commentary. So yeah, it definitely stands out.
And I love the fact that it's not even about the humans versus zombies. In the house, it becomes humans versus humans, and it's the conflicts.
Exactly.
The end of the film, it's gut wrenching. Like oh no, I'm glad you liked it. I for some reason thought you didn't like that.
No,
that's great. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. That just made my night. I'm so happy. Well, as you know, we alternate our format, you know, between movie reviews and topics. We do top 5 lists, and not always, but, you know, we do, you know, topics and stuff like that. So that being said, over the course of 9 seasons, we've covered a lot of topics. Do any stand out as some of your favorites?
Well, I figured if we're going to talk about our favorite topics, I should make a top 5 list.
Oh, wow.
Talk about my top 5 favorite top 5s.
Oh, go for it. Okay.
All right. And in the course of doing this, I realized we have 2 topics that we have covered twice.
Oh, really?
One of them made my top 5 list. The other one did not, but I'll ask you if you can guess what it is when we're done.
Okay. Okay. I could never guess it, I don't think, but go ahead. Yep.
Well, so one of the shows that I enjoy, again, these are in no order. I'm just going to read them from like the newest to the oldest.
Sure.
So both the newest and the oldest were called sequels we wish they'd make. We did that twice, although I believe the first time it was just you and Yancey, and the second time it was you and I. So I kind of now want to go back and listen to see how much your ideas might have changed depending on, you know, what sort of homework you did prepping for it. But sequels we wish they'd make, it definitely is on my list. I had a few doozies on there that I was looking forward to. And
so I've been pretty, you know, adamant about trying to not repeat any topics over the years. I've always tried to think about that as, you know, as we, you know, come up with our show notes and all this sort of thing. I did not realize that we did that twice, once with Yancey, once with you. I want to go back and listen to it now too. That's so cool.
So the original one was episode 108 and the newer one was episode 264. So
108 and 264.
2 or 3 years in between.
Wow.
And,
cool.
Yeah. No. Okay, so then my number 4 pick would be episode 196, movies we watched way too young.
Oh, yes.
That was a great topic. Had a lot of fun with that one.
Especially from Gen X. Oh, man.
Yeah. Episode 178, TV shows that deserve one more season. So again, that idea of the sequel, and one of my other ones is sort of along this line too. This is an idea that we keep coming back to, is the I want more. And if you want more, how are you going to do that? So that one was a good one. episode 143, Pop Culture Pet Peeves.
Oh, yes. That was a good one, too. Wasn't it?
And then believe me, my pet peeves still hold up. You know, I know Jon Snow is pretty and we need to see his hair and his face, but God damn it, put a hat on when you're north of the wall. It's cold. Like, oh my God, does that bother me so much when I watch movies and they're out in the cold without hats? Like, come on, people. And then my last one is, again, sort of on that sequel idea, is episode 128, TV shows ripe for a reboot. So again, this idea of sequels and reboots and one more season, like this is a topic that I really enjoy delving into. And I know what I had picked for some of these ones, and I had some really strong thoughts on it. And I think there might have been a little bit of overlap with some of these where it made sense. But yeah, so those were the 5 that we did that I enjoyed the most. Now, so trivia question for you then.
Yes.
So sequels we wish they'd make, that one we did twice. There was another topic that we did twice. Do you have any guesses?
So I'm thinking it must have been one that we did with Yancey, that I did with Yancey, and then I did it again with you. Romantic comedies?
No.
I don't know. What would it be?
Music videos. So in episode 43,
but I think me and Yancey did a top 5.
Yes.
And me and you just talked about music videos.
I think that is what happened. I'm pretty sure when you and I did our discussion, I had a top 5 in mind, but I don't know if we officially did it as a top 5.
I think we just talked about sort of the history of music videos and how they've evolved and gone on to like YouTube and stuff like that now. And whereas Yancey and I did like an actual top 5. That's what I remember it.
Yeah. So those two are maybe not the same, but the other ones, 108 and 264, are both sequels we wish they'd make. We did that one twice. So.
Nice.
Anyway, what about you? What are some of your favorite topics you've covered?
You know, I'll be honest. One of the things I've always liked our year in review shows. So we usually start off every new season. Like our seasons go by the calendar. So they start in January. And we usually kick off the season with a look back at the previous year in pop culture. I always enjoy those because I think it's a strong topic because it just puts into perspective how much goes in, you know, or how much happens over the course of a year.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes you forget, like so many years are just so good, except for the year 2020.
I was going to say 2020 year was a little bit rough.
Because man, that year sucked. In fact, it sucked so bad that I wrote a song about it, and it goes a little something like this.
Oh no, oh no.
It started in March and then by June I didn't know what to do, so I was drunk by noon. For vacation, we didn't know what we'd be doing, but we knew for sure we weren't going to Wuhan. On TV, things looked really bleak, but at least we all got to go up Schitt's Creek. 2020, man, it sucked plenty. 2020 cost a pretty penny. There ain't no movies, I had to get my fix. So I watched Cobra Kai on the Netflix. I spent all my time on eBay getting outbid, but at least I didn't get COVID. Wearing pants wasn't really a thing when you're sitting around watching Tiger King. 2020 really was a toilet bowl, but at least they voted out that asshole. 2020, man, it sucked plenty. 2020 cost a pretty penny. 2020, man, it sucked plenty.
It's only 4 years ago, but it seems like 24 years ago.
It does indeed. Right at the beginning, the line about "I was drunk by noon" really hit home, man.
I know. Everybody was
first
like,
few weeks.
Oh, exactly. And like,
they were like,
watching
"Don't come
Tiger
to work.
King.
Don't log on to the network."
Nothing.
I'm like, what the hell else am I supposed to do? I can't leave my house.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. So I should mention, in addition to doing topics and our movie reviews, I also like doing what I do best: singing and songwriting. Apparently. So. But anyway, where the hell were we? Oh, best topics, right?
Yeah.
So I like the best of shows that we did too. They drop every so often. They're a combination of the four episodes, and it's just like the fun with caveman trivia section at the end, because that's a lot of fun on every show. It's one of the best parts of the show. So those compilation shows I like. What else? I'm a huge fan of movie comedies, so I really liked it when Greg Martin came on the show and we did the top 5 funniest movie scenes of all time.
The funniest scenes.
That was a lot of fun.
That was really good.
But I think if I actually think of like the two topics that stand out to me the most, way back, I'm going all the way back to our first 2 seasons. So we did a show in season 2 on childhood celebrity crushes. And, who we crushed on when we were young. And I just love how Yancey handled it, because it was like he didn't want his wife to get mad at him for having a crush on a celebrity when he was like 10. Jeez. So he basically mentioned every celebrity and then went on to say about how much she reminds him of his wife.
Oh, nice.
Even though it was like literally years before he ever met her, So I love that episode. We had Danielle Salinger on as a guest, and she provided sort of a much needed female perspective to the topic. So I thought that was one of the best that we did, in my opinion. But I think the one that stands out to me the most when I look back, we go back to season 1, we did a topic that was top 5 guilty pleasures. And again, Yancey playing it safe the whole time. And there's me. I was basically just opening up about stupid stuff that I've just secretly loved over the years, like stuff like Saved by the Bell, the college years, and the fact that it's so embarrassing, but I pretend that I have my own show on the Food Network every night when I make dinner.
I remember you said that, and I thought that was hilarious.
So this is, I don't know. So I don't know. I'd like to do that again sometime. Maybe we'll come back to that in a second. So I mentioned Greg Martin and Danielle Salinger. Just mentioned them. We had them on as guests. We've had some amazing guests on the show.
We have.
We go back like Mike Gianella, Jesse Jordan, YouTuber Luke Telly was on, Justin Mason. We had author Kean Cruz, Patrick O'Reilly from my favorite podcast, Vintage Video, Robbie Rose, Michael Govier, you mentioned him. We have had so many guests on over the years. But Derek...
And hey, my wife was a guest.
Absolutely. More than once. She came on for...
Yes.
I think she did Aliens. She did Fast Times
with us last year.
Yeah. So that being said, Derek, is there anyone that you'd love to get on the show someday? Any guests that we've never had? Yeah.
Well, I tried to think about guests that we actually might be able to get, and then I just thought about like sort of wish fulfillment. So
let's do both. Let's do both.
The guest I think we could actually get is I'd love to have your wife on the show.
Oh, jeez.
We would need a topic, but I really want her to hear what goes on, because I don't think, honestly, that she's ever listened to this podcast. And I think if she understood how this format works and what we do, well, either she'd become an instant fan or you'd never be able to do another episode again. But I think it would make for good radio. So,
I think so too.
That's one I would definitely.
It's funny because she's completely separated from things. She's like, he doesn't care. Doesn't care what I do. And like I say, she mentioned to me there the other week, she's like, I was talking to some people at work and they're like, wow, your husband's podcast is like really good. Like, wow, it's so good. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't know. I don't listen. She's completely disconnected from it. So that would be an interesting one for sure.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there was other times she's like, oh, you should have me on the show. You should have me on the show. I said, oh, I remember she said it to me like once years ago. She's like, you should have me on to do your show with you. And I was like, okay, well, this week we're doing movie musicals. So which one would you pick? She's like, oh, Dirty Dancing. I said, but that's not a musical.
Yeah.
This is why you're not allowed on the show. so that's a good one. So, okay. So who else do you think that you would wish fulfillment?
I think for wish fulfillment, partly for me, it would be, I want a guest. So I'm thinking of other podcasters because I'm like, okay, well, part of the way social media, like we can grow this through social media is, we can be guests on someone else's podcast to promote our show, and they can be guests on our podcast to promote their show. So it would be awesome for us to get like a really famous podcaster come on and possibly give us a little bit of exposure. But at the same time, I'd want it to be somebody who I think would be a good guest, who would sort of get us, and who also would actually be able to knowledgeably talk about the movies that we talk about. So the two that come to mind, and we're talking polar opposites here, is either Kevin Smith, the movie director.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Who is basically become Mr. Podcast. That's his whole thing now. Or from the Ringer Network, Bill Simmons.
You like his podcast?
Who I like. I love his podcast. I mean, he knows all about sports. I mean, he's a basketball guy first, but he is a super pop culture guy. And again, I think he's 1 year older than you are. He's a couple years older than me. But you and he have very similar movie tastes. And I think that would make for an interesting discussion, although they do their Rewatchables podcast. So to find a movie that they haven't done and that we haven't done, I think would be a real stretch. But I think if either of those two guys ever came on our podcast, that would be the pinnacle for me. It'd be like, oh my God, like this, that would be me just gushing all over the place.
I like that idea of like which guest is like sort of a wish fulfillment, unrealistic, and one that might be realistic. For me, I guess my unrealistic wish fulfillment guest would probably be one of my all-time favorite actors, which is Dan Aykroyd.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Canadian, starred in some of my favorite movies, Trading Places and Ghostbusters, The Blues Brothers, Temple of Doom. But it's not reasonable to expect that Dan Aykroyd would ever join us on this show.
No.
So there's that.
Not.
But maybe somewhat realistic. I don't know. Maybe it's wish fulfillment too. I'd go with Chris Makepeace.
Okay.
Another Canadian actor. He starred in two of my all-time favorite movies, Meatballs and My Bodyguard, and then just sort of faded away from Hollywood. I'd love to have him on sometime, but I just don't know where to find him. But I think I would love to have him on. So any episodes, movie reviews, or topics that you'd like to do over?
Yes, for two very different. I have two shows for two very different reasons.
What do you got?
So, as you mentioned off the top, the first couple of seasons, it was you and Yancey. And while I was invited to come on as a guest quite a few times.
Yeah, you were a regular guest.
You guys were the first ones to the plate on a lot of stuff. And so there's a handful of topics you did that I would really like to visit or revisit. But the one that I personally, again, guilty pleasure that I would like to do, or that I wish I could have done, was the movie review of the movie The Martian with Matt Damon. Because
with
that's
who? Who was in it?
With Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Right.
There you go. Because that's one of my all-time favorite movies. I watch it all the time. I'm due for a rewatch any day now. I've actually been thinking about throwing it on in the background. And the fact that you guys had a chance to review it and I didn't get a chance to participate, again, it was your show. I wasn't a star of the show at that point, so it happened. But that was one that if you and Yancey had not done that would have been one of the very first movies I would have recommended that you and I watch. So yeah, if we had a chance to do that over again, I would love to participate. The other one that I would love to do over again, and this is going to surprise you until I tell you why, is the review of The Blues Brothers.
Oh, okay.
And the reason being, and I will admit this, that is the only movie review podcast we've ever done where I didn't watch the movie ahead of time because I couldn't find it. And I ended up having to watch YouTube clips.
You don't have it on DVD? Shame on you.
No, I ended up finding a YouTube site where they had like the 10 funniest scenes from the Blues Brothers, and they were all like 2-minute clips. And so between that, I mean, I'd seen the movie before, but not in a long time. So I had to it was like getting the Cliff's Notes for something, right? It's like I don't get the whole book, I just get the best parts. So when we did the podcast, honestly, I was really nervous and I really felt underprepared because I was. And throughout the podcast, you kept like, remember this scene and remember that scene? And I'm going, and I was like, I have no idea what he's talking about. I don't remember that scene. And that wasn't on the list of 10 best scenes. So if you go back and listen to it, I am really struggling to keep up. And
I've seen that movie so many times, I wouldn't have to watch it. We could just start recording right now.
If we did The Martian, that would be it for me. But the fact that it was a movie that I wasn't really familiar with, I had not seen in a long time, and that I was struggling to find a copy of, that was my cringiest episodes. Like, if you want to go back to episode 98 and listen to it, like, now that I've told you that, you're going to really pick up on the fact that I was not prepared. So if I could redo it, I would find the movie. I would actually watch it. And I have watched it since then, sort of as a makeup class for myself. And I would rewatch it, and I would do it. And I think I could do a much better job. And I think I would have had a lot more to add to that podcast. But that is you carrying me on your shoulders for 45 minutes. And if I could do it again, I would. And I feel I owe you that apology for not being prepped, because I know how much you enjoy that movie, but I think you did a great job of carrying me all the way through that. So
I would have no problem with doing a Blues Brothers movie review again anytime. Just let me know.
Fair enough.
For me, if I was going to go back and do over shows, it would sort of fall into one of two categories. Like, one would be if I'd want to improve upon it.
Okay.
And the other would be like one I just want to revisit again. So for me to improve upon a show, I would probably go back to season 1, because, I mean, we were still finding our legs, you know, and also I'd want to get your input on stuff, because it was me and Yancey back then. So one that stands out to me would be like guilty pleasures. I'd like to go back and do that again. I'd like to, because I think I could improve on that again and have your input. Mm-hmm. But in regard to a topic that I'd like to revisit again, we did a show called What TV Show Should I Binge Watch Next? And I think we could literally do that regularly.
We probably should. We should maybe do that once a year.
You could easily do that yearly.
I think when we did that the last time, we had a guest on as well, because there was a lot of things.
Justin Mason.
There we go. Came on. Yes, I remember. Yep. I couldn't remember his name, but I knew there was somebody on that show with us. So no, that's a good idea. We'll do that early into the new calendar year.
And before we, sort of just kind of wrap things up and stuff, I want to give a huge shout out to Yancey Eaton, because
for sure,
the genesis of this show it actually began on Dear Mr. Fantasy. So once Yancey came on that show, one of the dynamics that we discovered right away was the fact that he was so much younger than I was. And so he just didn't know. I would mention something about Airplane, and he'd be like, what the hell is that? I'm like, the movie Airplane. It's like, I've never heard of it. And I started to realize this guy does not know about like all these classic films that I love. And so we actually incorporated, like, it was a fantasy baseball podcast. So we were talking about fantasy baseball and stats and everything else. But then we did a little tiny segment at the end, and we called it Fun with Yancey. And it was basically me putting him on the spot, asking him super generalized pop culture trivia questions about Gen X that he knew nothing about. Like, he didn't know who Fonzie was. He didn't know anything. And it was so funny every episode to put him on the spot and embarrass him that he didn't know anything. So when I decided to step away from that show, we were like, we have something here. There's something there that's kind of cool. And that's when we decided to kind of spin off and do this show based on that show. But it was that dynamic that I had with Yancey. And then, like I said, you came on early as a regular guest and then just seamlessly took over. And it's been wonderful. But I did want to give a shout out to Yancey Eaton, just because, he helped get the ball rolling,
Yeah, you often talk about yourself as the OG, but Yancey's the OG as well. Yeah. Like, this wouldn't be what it is without him. So, yeah, we absolutely have to acknowledge his contributions to getting the show started and establishing the format. And obviously, I want to thank him for welcoming me to the show. And obviously, for those maybe who haven't been listening all along, I certainly didn't push him out of the way. He had to step away for numerous reasons. And he and I chatted, and he was fine with me stepping in to fill his vacancy, which was originally supposed to be temporary. Here we are. How many seasons later? I'm still here. So Yancey, I'm keeping the seat warm, buddy. You want to come back anytime? Like, I'll step aside for you. So, got to definitely thank Yancey for his involvement and participation and continued support. We hear from him from time to time. He does listen to the show. So.
Yeah, and I love Yancey. So, Derek, any additional thoughts or last words looking back on 300 episodes?
Well, one of the things that I've talked about with some of my friends, because obviously we all listen to various movie podcasts, is they're always like, are there any movies that you don't think you would ever review and for any particular reason, like maybe they're too controversial or something like that? And I said, really, the only movie or movies that I can think of that I wouldn't want to do on the show are movies where I know you and I are absolutely aligned. And we both love it. And so the one that comes to mind immediately is Star Wars, the original Star Wars, 1977. Yeah, like two guys that
we've always avoided
Star Wars that just go on and gush about it. Like, it's got such a huge fan base that I don't think there's anything we could add to the conversation that would be interesting to listen to. So I think a movie like that would probably not make for a very interesting podcast. And that was the first one that came to mind. Again, you could probably extend that to some of the other really big movies, but I know you and Yancey watched Jaws and Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I know are two of your favorites as well. But again, I think if
Raiders of the Lost Ark with Yancey, and he didn't like it.
Right, and he had not seen it before, right? Which is part of the reason you had him watch it.
Exactly.
And for that reason, again, if I had never seen Star Wars, then definitely have me on and get my opinions. But, two guys in our demographic, like, there's nothing we could bring to a Star Wars podcast that hadn't already been said before. So that's the number one. When people are like, is there anything you would never touch with a 10-foot pole? I'm like, Star Wars. And it's not because I don't like it. It's just because, we're gonna have the exact same things to say. That's boring. How about you? Is there any movies that you would just be like, you know what, we're never doing this one for any reason?
I don't know. I think I agree with you. Like, Star Wars, what's the point? Like, it's just been done so much. I would have thought the same thing with Jaws, but same thing in season 1. I felt it was important to get Yancey's take on it. Yeah. But other than that, I'll take all comers. It don't matter. Whatever movie you want to do. A lot of the movies that you make me do, I've never even heard of. Which is, kind of the...
Well, wait till I give you a recommendation in about 5 minutes. We're going to continue with that trend.
Just imagine. Yeah, a lot of these movies, I'm like, I have no idea. I never heard of that before in my life. So, I go into a lot of these kind of blind, so that's just kind of the way it is. But I guess as a final thought, I will say this. Like, here's the thing. Podcasts come and go. It is really hard to get any traction at all. If you look at iTunes... it's littered with abandoned and defunct podcasts, but we have been able to stay at this and achieve a milestone. And we could not have done this if it wasn't for people like you that take the time to download and listen to the show. So 300 episodes is a testament as much to the people that listen to this show as it is to you and me, Derek. So
absolutely. We couldn't do it without the listeners. So thanks for listening. We certainly appreciate it.
100%. I agree. On that note, what do you say for the 300th time we have some
fun with Caveman?
So Derek, obviously it's our 300th episode. So what I'd like to do tonight is have a little bit of trivia with you on TV shows that have had 300 or more episodes.
Wow. Okay. That's a pretty small list.
Yeah. There's more than you think. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'll give you the date that the show premiered and the total number of episodes and a brief synopsis.
Okay.
Super easy.
See if I can do it with the date and the episodes before the synopsis, because I think for some of them I probably can.
Okay. All right. So this show premiered on January the 31st, 1999, and has had 309 episodes.
Is it still ongoing?
Mm-hmm.
Survivor.
Let's go with the synopsis. The animated adventures of an eccentric family living in New England.
Oh, it's Family Guy.
All right, this one premiered on July 21st, 1969. 3,167 episodes. On a special inner city street, the inhabitants teach preschool subjects with comedy, cartoons, games, and songs.
Oh, that's got to be Sesame Street.
Okay, premiered March 27th, 2005. 317 episodes. A team of doctors at Gray Sloan Memorial in Seattle.
That's Grey's Anatomy.
So you're doing good. You're doing good here, okay? Premiered September the 19th, 1994. 338 total episodes. Doctors labor to save lives in the emergency room of a Chicago hospital.
Oh, that's got to be ER.
Yes, not to be confused with George Clooney's earlier TV series E/R from 1984 that starred Elliot Gould. That one didn't quite make it to 300 episodes.
No.
It was 292 episodes shy, actually. Okay. So this one premiered on October the 6th, 2000, 335 episodes. An investigation team in Las Vegas scours crime scenes for forensic evidence.
Oh, that'd be CSI.
CSI, Crime Scene Investigation. Okay, this one premiered on September the 10th, 1955, going way back.
Jeez.
635 episodes. Marshal Matt Dillon maintains law and order in Dodge City.
Well, it's got to be a Western of some kind. I don't know, Ponderosa.
Well, it was Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke. Yeah. Okay, sure.
All right. This one premiered on April the 2nd of 1978 and ran for a total of 361 episodes. The oil-rich Ewings endure daily troubles.
Yeah, I actually watched some of that. Dallas.
All right. Premiering on March the 26th, 1973 and running for a total of 13,046 episodes and running. Set in Genoa City, this is the long-running soap that tells the story of the struggle behind the business and sex-savvy Abbott and Newman clans.
That's Young and the Restless.
Very good. All right, this show premiered on September the 13th, 1990. Has a total number of episodes of 507. Two-part drama, which focuses on the New York criminal justice system, showing a violent crime investigated by police detectives and then criminal prosecution in court by the district attorneys.
Yeah, that's Law and Order.
All right, this show debuted on November the 23rd, 1968, and ran for 886 episodes. The Adventures in Time and Space of the Doctor, a Time Lord who changes appearance and personality by regenerating when near death, and is joined in companions in battles against aliens and other megalomaniacs.
It's got to be Doctor Who.
Of course. And then finally, Derek, I got one that's some Canadian content for you.
Oh, boy. Okay.
All right. It premiered on October the 1st, 1972, ran 374 episodes, and the synopsis is The Adventures of a Professional Lumber Salvager and His Friends in Gibson's, British Columbia.
Was that the Beachcombers?
Yes.
374 episodes? That's awesome.
374 episodes of Bruno Gerussi jumping over some logs. That is something else, let me tell you. Oh, boy. Oh, you did really good. See? Look at all those shows.
Once I had the synopsis, I got most of them. The Western was the only one I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it would have been as easy to do, even for the listeners to hear, without the synopsis. So it seemed better. So it is back to your turn to nominate a movie this time around, if I'm not mistaken. So you get to nominate a film. We're going to come back next week and review it. What movie do you want us to watch?
Well, since we just did our 300th episode, the low-hanging fruit would be to have you watch the movie 300. But you know what? I know you're not going to like that. So I'm going to pick something that I think you might actually enjoy. But as you just said, it's going to be a movie you never heard of.
Right.
Movie's from 2006. It's called The Prestige. It's directed by Christopher Nolan. It stars Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale.
You are correct. I've never seen it. I've never even heard of it. And this is my shtick. And it's not just a shtick, really. It's just my thing. After 1989, I just kind of shut down. I don't know. Yeah. I just watch old stuff and that's it. I have never even heard of The Prestige. Chris, you said it was Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan.
So he's the one that did like Batman and Interstellar. Oh, God.
He just did. Was he Oppenheimer? Was he Christopher Nolan did Oppenheimer?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy, so I couldn't tell you. And you said Christian Bale. He's kind of a. That guy.
He is what he is.
But anyway, and who else is in it? You said
Hugh Jackman.
Oh, so he was in that Logan movie we just watched. You maybe watched.
He's pretty good. Wolverine just came out. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that guy. He's all right. He's the opposite of Christian Bale. He's like a nice guy. Yeah.
So I haven't seen this in a while, but I do remember, much like most of Christopher Nolan's movie, it's long. I think it's about 2.5 hours, if I remember correctly. I would strongly encourage you to watch it all in one sitting, because it's one of these movies where you really want to be paying attention. It's about magicians. So, I mean, the closer you're watching, you might be able to figure out like how their tricks and stuff work, which can become a part of the movie. But yeah. Try to do it all in one sitting if you possibly can. I checked; it's available on Disney Plus and it's on Crave here in Canada, so possibly HBO in the US. So yeah, we'll take a look at the.
Sorry, Prestige. It's magicians. Are we talking like old magicians, like
yes,
like Houdini and stuff, or like new ones, like no. Like the guy that just stands up on top of a pole.
No, it takes place like it's at like the late 1800s, early 1900s. Okay. Like it's sort of that turn of the century time frame. Again, it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's that idea. They're like anyway. And the movie starts by explaining what they mean. The title is The Prestige, and they explain that right at the beginning. There's like a title card and a voiceover, and they explain da-da-da-da-da, and this is what the Prestige is. And you're like, oh, okay. And then you get 2.5 hours. So I haven't seen it in a while, but I do remember enjoying it. I'm actually in the process of going back to revisit some of Christopher Nolan's earlier movies, so this was sort of coming up on my list, and I thought, I think you're going to enjoy it. I hope you're going to enjoy it, but we'll come back next week and talk all about it.
I guess we'll find out.
And if you feel like it, have your wife watch it, and you can bring her. No, exactly. She's not going to have the patience to sit through it.
Over the course of 300 episodes, if we've learned anything, it's that I don't always like the movies you think I'm going to like. But we'll find out if we do or not. So we'll come back next time. We will watch The Prestige. We will review it here on the show. And 300 episodes, man. It's been pretty good.
Congratulations.
All right. Yeah, you too. Until next time, I'm Chris McBrien, and that's Derek Myers. And we want to say thanks for taking the time to listen to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.